Welcome to the open source working group session. And if you are here, you're doing it consciously, waking up at 9 a.m. and coming here instead to the Connect working group. My name is Marco Sanz. I'm one of the co-chairs of the working group. The other one is Marco Ditri over here. And our dear Sasha, who was not able to join in person. Sasha is in Miteko. So three of us wish you welcome, and couple of words. First thing, we have probably a scribe from RIPE NCC taking notes. Thank you very much, sir. And you all now have your link. You can join Miteko, take a look at the live stream. Thank you very much to our dear stenographer. And want to make you aware that we have a code of conduct, RIPE. It's a RIPE document. You can scan the first QR code if you want to take a look at that. And we all imply that you know it. And remember to rate the talks. That's very useful for us indeed. When the RIPE's over, we get those ratings and then we analyze them, give feedback to the presenters. So please do rate the talks. We sent the minutes of the last meeting, a link to it, to the list. We didn't receive any comments, and unless someone objects to that now, then we will consider those minutes approved, which we are doing now. If you want to take a look at the minutes, that's the second QR code. Yeah, and finally, let's analyze the agenda. This is our agenda for today. We have three interesting presentations, hopefully auch interesting discussions. The question is there any other business that we should allocate some time for at the end of the meeting? Because if not, then now let's start with the first presentation. And I would ask Ondrej Zajicek to come here. He didn't fill the presenter's profile in pre-talks, so normally I would now read your profile, but I know him because he's been here for very long. I think your first presentation about Bird at RIPE was like 2013, so you've been at least working 12 years in the project, at least.
I'm working since 2008. I'm working on Bird from 2008, and I think I was on the my first RIPE was on 2008 in Ireland, I think, or Portugal.
Now the floor is yours.
Microphone or this one? Oh. Hello. Oh, this is working. Hello. So I would like to speak about scope creep in open source, because that's something that we like everybody noticed when working in many software tools, and also as I develop Bird routing daemon, we have plenty of interaction with this phenomenon. What is scope creep? One nice definition is just gradual expansion of project scope beyond some natural boundaries. So you can add new features, but some feature fit well, whether what should the project implement, or some doesn't fit well. You can expand your scope both horizontally to get more features on the same level of abstraction or position in like your software stack, or you can expand your scope vertically to have complete features of completely different level. For example, if you have routing daemon, you can expand vertically to have a graphic user interface for it or something like that. While expanding horizontally would be like having completely different different protocol routing, for example. So what are the causes of scope creep? I noticed two basic causes, but there are probably much more. Especially, I restrict to the causes specific to like open source, so there are probably other causes in like commercial software where you have like marketing pressures, but from the open source perspective, one of the most important reason is users ask for features that are related but not really in scope. Like we use this software and we would also need this, which could be in some commonly associated, but not. And the second reason that I notice is that sometimes when we need to implement in-scope features, that there are some dependencies for out-of-scope functionality. And once the out-of-scope functionality is here implemented anyway, then why not just use it for other features anyway? So this kind of chaining of scope creep could happen. So, well, why accept scope creep? I would like to talk from the perspective that there already is that we are thinking about some new feature, and there already is existing implementation of the feature outside of project. So why re-implement it inside our project? Well, the most important reason is to have consistent user experience, because every tool is different, and people get used on one tool. So, and also reuse existing code infrastructure, because if I know my project, implementing something new inside it is probably order of magnitude easier than just starting completely new project. And also it enables tight integration, because having these kind of boundaries between projects can bring plenty of issues. But why reject scope creep? If there's already implementation, then re-implement something new just dilutes developer resources and adds maintenance burden. And also it's reinventing of wheel, and people who specialize in something different, then they can bring much better product than if it is some kind of border focus for us. And it, as I said, it can expand if there is some kind of slippery slope. If I accept some out-of-scope feature, then their scope expands. There are more out-of-scope features that could be on the boundary. So, and if some successful projects have scope creep, that could lead to centralization of development to just these specific projects. So there is some alternative loosely code component. So I will just do some kind of quick step outside and use some more examples from my project. So build internet routing daemon. It's kind of, you probably know it. It's traditional Unix daemon, like everybody knows. It has routing protocols and management of OS routing tables, and it has simple configuration text file and simple command line interface. So where are the scope creep risk in BIRD? Well, there are many accompanying protocols that are not necessarily related to routing, but you should need it on your router anyway. So like route advertisement, BFD, which is bidirectional forwarded detection, LLDP, like detecting your link level neighbors, or even DHCP v6 and Some of these we implemented in BIRD, some of these we thought about, but not yet. And second is some feature that on our mailing list is asked many times, and we always rejected it exactly from the scope creep reason is to have some interface and IP address configuration. Everybody, well, on servers, people usually use the default if up-down scripts, which are in some kind of horrible, and to have something better would be nice. I think that recently there is some new scripts that are not focused on desktop, but more on servers or routers. But in the past, they were not here. So people would like to expand BIRD also for these kind of features. And in some cases, it is natural, but also when we started, when we added support for example, simple IP static configuration, then someone would ask, what about DHCP client? Or what about wireless configuration of wireless interfaces? So yeah, that's like a opening of can of worms we didn't really wanted to enter. And third point is BIRD configuration management. We have simple, that's kind of example of vertical scope creep. We have simple configuration file, but some people are used on dynamic reconfigurations through CLI commands. So it would be like adding new complete functionality on a level that could already be done outside of our project by like editing config files. So, and the fourth interesting example is EVPN, because it brings many of features and and it is example of the second cause that in-scope features sometimes require auto-scope functionality. So more about this. EVPN, I don't know if everybody knows, it's like something like distributed layer 2 switch. It uses BGP it uses BGP, so it's definitely in scope. It brings plenty of layer 2 features, could be also used for other but there are some things that it requires a very specific setup of kernel, bridge, and VXLAN interfaces. And there are plenty of questions. Should these interfaces be created by BIRD, or should we assume that user use existing interface management software to set up these interfaces to the exact state that we need them? There are arguments that if user expect BIRD not to set up interfaces because it is because BIRD is not in business of set up configuring interfaces, it would be strange or unexpected if BIRD just do one exception for this specific interfaces. So there are plenty of questions, and also we also need to set up VLANs on these interfaces, and there are some multiple, like you have to the configurations of VLAN in BIRD config file for BIRD part, and also for the interface part. So if we do not configure it, then user have to configure these things in two different places. So we finally decided in some kind of hybrid approach, like we do not set up these interfaces, but we verify that they are configured in the exact way we need them, report errors to users, and we also configure the VLANs on them, because that's something that could be dynamically changed based on BIRD configuration. So, as I mentioned, BIRD is not really full-fledged routing stack. It is essentially just one level or one part of full routing stack, and like most things in open source, full-fledged routing stack would be just loosely coupled collection of loosely coupled components, and BERT is one of these components. So let's move from the from the point of view of integrated of scope creep and getting to have full integrated suite to just collection of loose scoped components. What are advantages of loose scoped components? Well, they bring maximum flexibility, like users can get what they want. Users don't need to know components. They can select these components that they know, or it also eliminates some communication complexity between developers. There is clear separation of concern. Every developer can focus on their own project, and different alternatives could compete. So yeah, but there are also problems with this model. Sometimes it's too much flexibility. Users sometimes don't want to choose between 4 different implementation of the same things, because if you need to choose 4 different implementations, you probably need to test which is better. So you have plenty of work just to do some informed decision which are used. So, and loosely coupled components brings like inconsistent user experience. Like every tool has different configuration files, different UI, inconsistent quality. Like for example, BERT handles very well a situation where interface disappears and appears on the fly. Many Unix software do not handle these cases, even in this year. So inconsistent coverage of use cases, of some corner cases, like you can have version and compatibility issues. Like recently we break our dependency on Blanche when we moved to BERT 3 and sometimes changed the output of our CLI format. And so yeah, plenty of complexity with things like every component have different logging, error reporting. You could have some cascading failure that one component fails and nobody handles that. And there is completely specific forms of integration of components. If you have loosely collection of components, then set up all these components together is something that requires non-trivial work and non-trivial knowledge. It essentially becomes the development on the new level. So instead of just you as user or someone who do not know much but want to use something, you are essentially moving to the position of developer, choosing, selecting components, putting them together, to know their limitations, and to know how to connect them. If you have like plenty of tools that have to be connected, that the number of connections or possible connections is quadratical, so you can, and all of these can have different specific information about you need to know. And worst thing is these integrations often left to users. So it's as I said, it creates like non-trivial work that is duplicated between many users. So what I would like point, the integration of independent loosely coupled component is often so complex task that we develop that people develop tools just to avoid that. This is such a Docker. It's something that you packed loosely coupled component in one package and distribute it as a whole. So yeah. There is one counterexample, dynamic libraries. I always consider this interesting because dynamic libraries are in some way independent component. They are tight coupled in contrast to regular, in contrast to like multiple programs working together because of type system of the language that is used to implement for which these libraries are for. And there are some differences because if you have like two programs that you have to connect together, you as usually need to manually connect them together. But if you have like program and dynamic library or dynamic library and another dynamic library, then this connection is completely automatic. You just, as from the user point of view, you just run program requires some dynamic library, linker, which is in some kind of broker, find the library, load it, and you don't need to do much anything. If, for example, running program with dynamic libraries would be similar like running multiple components or multiple programs together, you would have to start every dynamic library as independently configure it in a config file of your program, and that would be horrible. But sometimes in the dynamic library, this works in loosely coupled user space programs. The integration is much worse. And so perhaps my last point is make software more like libraries, like define stable interfaces and API versions, so we could have automate some kind of broker that finds the required component and let configure the requirement in one final endpoint and let programs ask for the dependencies without necessary manual interaction for the user. So that's, yeah. So that's probably all I would like to say. Questions?
Hi, Ondrej, I see. I have so many things to say, but I'll limit myself. We can discuss this later. So I'm totally with you on this because my question when we like get asked, do you want this? I say, who is going to maintain this? And there's usually crickets. But the other thing that you say that the program should have stable interfaces. It's so complicated in the future development to keep stable interfaces.
Yeah.
So my question is, what is the path you are going to choose? Because these are like generic ideas, but is there anything that you are going to try in BERT project and then you can report in like 3 years how it
Well,
worked?
we try to have API generators based on young models that could be used for automatic generator on code interfaces code. If you, for example, look on Vyland, then it has like a very nice approach to API stability that you can request specific version of each API, and so yes, it's question of like code generators for and API descriptions. So
you went with netconf?
We are planning to use young models and CBOR API based on something like netconf. I don't know if netconf will be here with CBOR format.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
I have a question, Ondrej. Did you find a situation where you had such a component which was so independent, so loosely coupled for the rest of the project, where you said, I'm going to open a new project for this because it's not BERT anymore?
Yes. I think that one thing I did not mention about is that we think that perhaps in the future we should split some features from BERT, like things like CLI and UI to different package or not package like component and let it communicate with the core functionality through some API. So, but that's something like aspirational more than a specific plan.
Okay, I see. Good. Then I'd say round of applause for Ondrej. Thank you very much. Good. Our next speaker is Annika, and she writes open source software. She's the maintainer of Alice Looking Glass and B3 Scale, and she has 2 profiles at GitHub and Mastodon, and I'm not going to read out the URLs. The floor is yours, Annika.
Okay, thank you. Hey, everyone. So, I think I should take some water first. So, welcome to when to actually rewrite it in Rust. This talk has a bit of a background. So last time in Lisbon, there were quite some bickering or some light-hearted, more or less, comments about this trend in Rust to reinvent software, rewrite software for the sake of the rewrite. And I took this a bit personal. And so I was thinking, yeah, while this was going on in the between the audience and the presenters, I was thinking, okay, so when to actually rewrite it in Rust? Do I have a nice example? And so first, hi, I'm Annie. I write software. I maintain the Alice BGP Looking Glass, which is which I will use as basically the case study for this. I maintain also B3 Scale, which is also a quite popular load balancer for Big Blue Button. Yes, and I love writing software. I am very passionate about programming languages and open source in general. Yeah, I really love open source. It opened an entire world of software development to me when I was really young, and I basically stayed with it. So, when to actually rewrite it in Rust? This is a very multiple layered question. So I think we need to tackle first the but why in general. So when we have to deal with a rewrite, we first need to take a look at some source code, I guess. So we have these often enough historically grown sources. Alice is a project that is going on now for almost 10 years. And the birdwatcher component of this looking glass, that is the component that is communicating with Bird, ingesting all the CLI interface output and converts this into a structured form in right now JSON in order to be digested from the looking glass. This is a software that has been around for a while, and yeah, it has I guess some rough edges, and I should have maybe added a content warning for regular expressions here. So yeah, I guess this this was kind of always my kind of motivation. There is the software part, and it has grown over time, and I wanted to, yeah, maybe rewrite this. So, but then why Rust? Why explicitly Rust? I mean, I could do the rewrite in Go. It is written in Go. The Alice Looking Glass is written in Go. Go was performing fine so far. I want to motivate this with a realization I had earlier this year. That is that the entirety of memory safety is actually one of the least interesting parts of Rust. So Rust comes with a good typing system. So there are a lot of, I say good, I think it's really great, but I mean, there are opinions about typed programming languages and typing in general, and so, yeah. But this typing system has some interesting properties. It helps you guide you through the code and even manages to enforce a couple of properties you need to do what they call fearless concurrency. And this is like, yeah, actually having on compile time a check that, for example, a certain data structure cannot be shared between threads without, for example, wrapping this in like a mutex or in some kind of other way to facilitate this concurrent data access. So I guess this is, I mean, the best evidence, I guess, is another anecdote. Earlier this year, I had, so I discovered a new window manager this year. I finally figured out how to run Wayland on NVIDIA hardware, and I thought, okay, maybe I should try a different window manager, and came across NRI. This window manager is written in Rust, and it's really cool, but it was like lacking a feature, like lacking a key binding for me to switch directly between monitors. And what I did was basically I added this configuration option to the configuration part of the software, to the parser that's ingesting the configuration, and then I just followed the error messages. And this feature that I built for example, for switching between monitors, it worked on the first time when it compiled. And I found this quite impressive. And so a couple of days later, I also challenged myself to a small, like a hackathon day, so to speak. So, and I challenged myself to add maybe a non-trivial feature, like wouldn't it be great if I could just take define another output in my configuration, and which will act as a virtual monitor that I can, for example, then stream over WebRTC in order to have like my phone as a virtual second screen. One thing about Wayland is, yes, it's very nice in components. However, a lot of these compositors implement features again and again and again. And like these virtual output features is one of those features that I actually saw in action, I think with GNOME, and they added this in their compositor. However, if you're using not GNOME, and this is, I think, one of the drawbacks, you need to kind of, yeah, re-implement functionalities there. So long story short, in like a couple of hours, I was able to wire up a prototype which worked with the rendering backend, with a just with a testing rendering backend, because the software was provided really nice testing facilities. And yeah, at the afternoon, I actually had this implementation up and running with basically rendering a virtual output into an off-screen buffer and streaming this to my phone. I am not a graphics programmer. I am not. I had no prior real experience with like the direct rendering infrastructure and all these things you come in touch with this. However, Rust and the properties of this language basically facilitated or basically managed to give me enough information, together with an awesome documentation, of course, to add this, what I call a non-trivial feature in a non-trivial code base with really not much friction and with quite some confidence, actually, that it works when it compiles. So this is kind of my takeaway from working with unknown Rust code bases. This language and the compiler and all these things give you, structure and the tools and empowerment to contribute with confidence. And I hope that this will inspire a couple of more people to actually take some random source code in Rust and just dig into it and maybe even contribute to this project. So back to my original thing about the birdwatcher. So with all of this and with me glazing Rust to no end here, how well did the rewrite actually go? So I think we talked about this quite for a long time. I think it was like at least 3-4 years ago when I already started circulating the idea of I'm doing this rewrite and I'm coming up with a birdwatcher replacement and but why did this take so long? So did I jump over? Okay, whatever. So I dug a bit into my file system and I unearthed a very early form of this in 2020 that I totally forgot about. And it was my initial try to implement a part for the bird output for the protocols. But this was very much incomplete. The Rust code looked horrible. And I was thinking, okay, no, I'm going to start from scratch. So, and this time for real. And this worked actually quite well. So I pretty fast came up with my initial parser and for the neighbors and the initial parser for the routes. And then I ran into my first obstacle, which is like concurrency. Because, well, we're dealing with a lot of routes and to ingest these routes from the CLI and convert them very fast to the structured JSON output. We need to have some kind of parallelization. And the first intuition I had was, okay, I'm going to try to outsource this to a library, and it looked like that this, for example, Rayon library for Rust seemed to be quite fitting, and I maybe need to do some work in converting all this, converting the parser for the routes to an async interface, because I think the library was requiring async, async functions there, and this did not work. Maybe it was a skill issue on my side, and my Rust skills were just not there yet, but it was very frustrating. I ran into problems and it and at some point I just decided, yeah, okay, I'm starting from scratch again and take the parser code, revert all the async stuff I added, and abandoned this idea and just took the L and instantiated the thread pool, which then gets fed the CLI data over channels and returns the responses into a collection channel, roughly. Interestingly, this is pretty much like Birdwatcher already did. So yeah, I kind of copied the concept that I was already employing in Go, but at the same time, it felt a bit more low level, so which was nice. So fast forward to 2024, I managed to build this. It seemed to work, and I was like, at this year, 2025 Lisbon, hey everyone, remember this is Birdwatcher replacement I was working on. I'm pretty confident it's almost done. Yeah, no, I might have forgotten about all the gritty details, which were, oh no, how can I go back? Like this. So I call this the rest of the all, because, yeah, okay, like having a parser that seems to work is only, yeah, I mean, you need to expose this to actually real world data, because, I mean, even if you have well-defined data structures and nice parsing and so on, this, yeah, this did not, this was not sufficient. Okay, so what was still missing? Cache limits, rate limiting, concurrency limits, and so on. I think I skipped a slide earlier, which was marking my overall strategy for how I tackled this project. So I was first thinking, okay, let's do this really in really with a small scope. Let's not do the scope creep. Let's focus on the most easy thing, like which is a single table route server. I will define the minimal data structure which are required for Alice to work with. So a lot of data that was parsed by Birdwatcher ended up being just thrown away. It was to a degree exposed through the Alice API, but within the Alice UI, this data was often just ignored. I will need to get some feedback later on how much of the extended data might be actually relevant for people to use. Because in Alice there was this concept of, yeah, there is this, when you access the API, you get the structured form that also the UI is ingesting, but below you get some more extended raw output. And I know of some people that are using scripts that are actually working with some of those fields. Some of those fields have been merged back, but yeah. Also, I kind of wanted to get rid of all the regex. Well, not all the regex, but yeah, keep it to a minimum and try to parse the output using like more state machine approach, like keep track where you are in the basically in the route section, and then employ specialized parsing functions for example, ingesting all the BGP attributes and so on. Lastly, I was thinking, okay, it would be really nice to interface with Bird directly. I mean, the thing is, the CLI and Bird, the interface you see with Birdc is pretty much only the CLI, the socket, minus some control markers. So yeah, this worked quite well, and I then was now confronted with the rest of the OL. So caching, rate limiting, concurrency, and so on. And I was thinking to myself, can I vibe? Can I vibe code this? So my first approach was basically taking, yeah, let's do this with the rate limiting feature. And I fired up this coding agent, and I typed in a prompt, not very unlike this. Yes, I'm actually mixing languages and like all of these things, because these models don't care. They ingest keywords there in this stage. So I kind of try to figure out a way to minimize the amount of fluff and stuff this with keywords, so to get this mechanical squirrel to run in the right directions where I threw the peanut. Also, planning ahead really works. So, and to my surprise, this worked. End of my talk, I'm done. I stopped writing software. See you, it was nice. So yeah, this worked, and it didn't feel so good. And it looks like with Rust, you remember all the properties of this language I told you about, this works way too well for my taste. However, the code still has 6 fingers. So what do I mean with the code has like 6 fingers? It's, yeah, take, for example, a situation where you could do a type conversion of a variable, and you do this type conversion before the loop because you need to have the converted type within the loop, and you will only convert it once. With a code that has a 6th finger will do the type conversion in the loop. And the thing is, I have seen code in the wild like this, not written by LLMs. So, well, but yeah, I was then thinking, okay, let's do this better. Let's do it the right way. I mean, this is software that is running on route servers and is interacting with infrastructure that needs careful work. So I abandoned this approach and yeah, and did it all by myself. And this took me a couple of days again, and isn't it beautiful? So these are actually a couple of regular expressions I have left. I did not eliminate them all, and I'm pretty sure if you look long and closely enough, you will also spot like 6 fingers here, which I introduced myself, maybe. And yeah, I actually think this is way more maintainable and way more approachable than the regexcel I showed you earlier. Another thing that motivated me in the first place to do the rewrite was, well, there were some kind of memory management issues with Go. I mean, Go is a memory managed language, and you do not have that much control over garbage collection and this memory management cycle. You have to a degree. You can fine-tune a lot of things, and I did a lot of fine-tuning work on Alice. And I tried this also with Birdwatcher, however, I ran into issues. And so I was it was quite nice to see that the Rust implementation seemed to be really faster on this. So this is the same routing data. This is I mean, for the Birdwatcher benchmark, I piped this through the Bird CLI, and but it's the same. It's the same socket data. And the Rust and the ingestion of the routes basically, yeah, took like half the time in Rust, which is nice. Sure, I'm not making an entirely fair comparison here, because remember when I said there are a lot of data that is ingested by the birdwatcher is not structured and is basically coupled together with maps, like dynamic maps. So you have key value pairs there a lot. But the Rust variant is very much focused on the specific attributes you need and the specific fields you need. So it's a bit unfair, but we were talking about rewrite. So, I mean, this is like, okay, I would hope that if I would have rewritten it in Go, I could actually present you a similar slide where I would say, yeah, okay, my new Go version is way better and more memory efficient, and you should all try it. Which brings me to what's next. BKix, my friends there were already testing this. I want to really thank Alex and Ondrej for doing this and backing this project, also a bit financially. So thank you so much for this. And I kept actually working on the birdwatcher replacement, and I really have to say, so like back in Lisbon, when I said, so the entire thing is practically done, I can here now say multi-table support is practically done. Yeah, there's only like 2 interfaces, two endpoints I might need to add. I really need to check this again. But yeah, and what I really now would be interested in would be, yeah, like your experience with this software, maybe in a lab environment. I was testing this against, for example, the BirdNet lab setup, where you can fire up a bird testing environment with various configurations, and yeah, this worked quite fine. So I'm waiting for the bug reports. And also, don't be afraid to dig into the source code and maybe be inspired to contribute. So, thank you all.
Thank you, Annika. Any questions from the room? People joining?
Hello, I have one question.
Who are you?
I'm Ondrej Zajicek.
Hi, Ondrej.
Hi. I have one question. Didn't you consider use like parser generators like Bison for parsing the output?
These are handcrafted and
bespoke. Yeah. Bespoke.
So once we can have some formal structural definition of a bird API, I'm pretty sure we can do a lot with code generation and so on. But the thing is, yeah, we are talking about this for almost as long as I'm working on the birdwatcher replacement. So, but it will come. I'm confident. At some point, we will not even need the birdwatcher anymore, and can do everything with like nice, well-defined APIs, which will split our software into components we can nicely wire together like libraries. Okay.
Hi, Gordon Guidolfa, Nokia.
Hi.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Annika. I was curious about your thoughts from more of a community perspective, what a rewrite in Rust might mean for a project. It is my understanding that Rust has a bit of a steeper learning curve than most programming languages out there that are considered mainstream.
Yeah.
Do you perhaps think that this might slightly limit the number of potential contributors to open source project? What kind of effects might have?
Yeah, so of course there is a steep learning curve. And sometimes these error messages can be a bit well, idiosyncratic. So, for example, you need to know what it means that the data structure cannot be sent. Not going into detail there, but yes, I think there is quite some learning curve, but I think the learning curve is manageable a lot. I mean, it's a lot of people are using this programming language, and I mean, maybe this is also, I don't know, maybe this is also like a good thing that that it maybe has some barrier, but I don't know. It's a yeah, it's a, I'm sorry, I have a hang up. So the thing is, I really think it enables people to contribute with confidence, but you need to get to a level first that you actually have that much of a grasp of the language to actually write in this language and contribute. But when you contribute, then I can actually be quite confident that, yeah, your code will work if you add some kind of unit test and if it compiles. So yeah, I don't know if this answers your question. Sorry.
Thank you. I would love to discuss this further.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Hi, this is Ondrej Zajicek. So title of your presentation was when to actually rewrite things in Rust. Do you have an answer for that after this presentation?
I was waiting for this question. It's like, was it actually worth it? And
Well, I mean, just for yourself. Like,
yeah. So for me, it was absolutely worth it because I learned a lot of. I mean, I learned. Yeah, for me, it was quite a good learning experience. And this is what I was hinting at with okay, I'm not sure if a rewrite in Go, for example, would also yield like very good performance and memory results. So this is why I marked this with take it with a grain of salt. And yeah, I think it was worth it. And I guess time will tell. Time will tell when I hopefully see contributions coming in, and this will test this hypothesis that yeah, you can contribute with confidence. So
what I'm hearing is that there's no clear answer, and the answer might be when it makes sense, right? For the project, for you. Okay, thank you.
okay.
I'm Marco Ditri and I am a Debian developer. I want to stress one of the big issues that I found with Rust, not Rust language, but Rust the ecosystem, is that Rust programmers took that terrible habit of Node.js programmers of depending on very specific versions of libraries, not having stable libraries APIs. And this makes really, really hard for distributions to package Rust software because if we have multiple packages which want to depend on multiple versions of the same library, then that's a big problem because Debian security team will kill me if I propose either vendoring too many libraries or duplicating the version of a library. And that's, for all I know, still an unsolved problem in this ecosystem. Thanks.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I agree that the Rust ecosystem has a bit of this Node and NPM dependency hell problem. And I hope that the future will bring better tooling and better ways to actually deal with libraries and shared libraries and so on. But yeah, you're absolutely right, and this is, I think, one of the major drawbacks of Rust right now at this point.
Any questions from remote, Marco? Anything remote? No. And thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you again,
cool.
Annika.
Bye.
And our last speaker is Ondrej Surý. Ondrej is the director of DNS engineering at the ISC, working on Bindline project. Ondrej might know a thing or two about DNS. Previously, he signed the .cz zone while at CZ.NIC and was involved in the Node.dns, Node Resolver, several other CZ.NIC projects. Wrote a lot of stuff here. He especially enjoys the log-free and wait-free programming and, in general, smart algorithms to solve problems in the new and innovative ways. In the RAP community, Ondrej serves as one of the RAP arbiters. In the DNS community, Ondrej is one of the DNS working group chairs at the IETF and at ICANN. He's also the recovery key shareholder for the root zone key ceremony, a member of the Registry Services Technical Evaluation Panel. And outside of the RAP community, you may know Ondrej as the Debian developer who maintains PHP directly in Debian and through the dev.suree.org project. Also provides the PHP packages for various PHP versions and various Debian and Ubuntu distributions. Here you go.
Hi, this is Ondrej, and I need to make this shorter because I didn't know that Marcos will read it. Sorry for suffering through this. Right now, I'm not going to talk about the algorithms, anything. It's just my pet peeve. So there's one thing you need to understand, that Bind9 is like old project, and there was a lot of inertia around it. And what we are trying to do is make things go smoother and not spend time on things that we don't need to spend time on. So this is more like about like making a complex projects releases process to go smooth. So there's a like everlasting clash between, unless the software engineer, QA engineer, and the users is just the one person, then there's everlasting clash. Like software engineers want to like release fast and fix bugs, and you need to use the like nightly version, and users want to, well, I want my software never change, so I don't have to upgrade, but I also need new features and fix bugs, but don't change the software. And QA engineers, they want tests and they are unhappy. Their words, not mine. So what is the release? So what is the release engineering? We take the source and package it, right? So what about documentation? What about packages? And what about containers? What about signing? I forget about the signing, but there's a huge thing as well. If you have a complex team, then it's not one developer that has like a signing key on a YubiKey or something. It's more people that have access to the key, and there needs to be a little bit of process. And then during the release, you also want the tests to pass and stuff. So this is all part of the release process. So what if there are multiple releases? Like in Bind, we have like multiple trains, like Bind 9.18, 9.20, and then the developer version. So we have at least 3 releases every time, and you need to do all of this for all these 3. So this is actually the current checklist. It's not that horrible because it's very detailed. So you usually click most of them, but the release engineer, which in our case is also QA engineers, are silently screaming into the void. And then comes the CRA compliance that will just require more stuff, even for the open source. And now the release engineers are loudly screaming. So does it have to be this complex? So what is the release thing? We already talked about it, but it contains source code, documentation, and build system on one part. And there are some artifacts like source code tarballs, binary packages, release notes, documentation, test results. All of this is part of the release. So we ideally want reviewed and tested source code. Again, what does it mean? So, well, formally, we just changed the thing. The software engineers are usually like, I don't want to do reviews. I want to write the code, new stuff. Yay. I don't want to document this, just read the source. It works, you have to believe me. Nothing can break, that's my favorite phrase. Before we changed the process, we had like a merge window that was 3 weeks, and then it was around 1 week code freeze when we just could continue writing code, but we couldn't just integrate into release branches. So the code development, and it just stopped the flow. So right now, we changed this last month actually. So there's a release checkpoint, and we branch off the release branches got their own release branches, but the point is that the release branches, like the main branches that we do development, should be always stable, always reviewed, always tested to the extent possible, always documented, which means always ready for release. If I want to make a release, it should be like I click and there's a release. Simplified. Well, I was told that the release engineers and the QA is still unhappy, but it's getting better. I don't think they will be ever happy. It's their job to be unhappy. But this is much better than what we had before. So what is testing anyway? It's source code testing. We have unit tests, system tests, cross-version tests, interoperability testing, performance testing, user deployment testing. This is the best one. You just give the users the thing and they will just report it, make the bugs. But the users are usually not happy about finding the bugs for us. So we try to prevent this. But it's not just like the functional testing. It's also, for the quality assurance, it's also style and formatting. My recommendation is to just agree on single source code and style and formatting and use tools for this, like, Clang format, Clang tidy, Cosinel for refactoring automatically. For Python, there are other tools like Black, Bylint. They're all opinionated, like software engineers. But just make an agreement inside the team and use one style and enforce it. Well, I'm emphasizing that use tools to help you, but they also enforce the style. For Shell, there's also tools. For other, the Go, I know there's Go FMT or something that enforce the style. Rust probably has something like this. So just use the tools so you don't have to think about this. Thinking about the style and formatting just takes away the energy you already don't have as a software maintainer. It's also documentation. So, and I don't mean just like the user documentation. It's commit messages. It's also documentation for the poor soul that comes after you. Comments in the code is also documentation. Source itself is also documentation, as Donald Knuth in his literary programming pointed out that the computer programming is an art. These all are art. But not everyone is Da Vinci, but but it's art. It should be, at least for you, it should be like you should feel emotions looking at the code. It doesn't have to be good emotions, but looking at the code, your old code, other people's code, it all evoke emotions, right? As software engineers. So it was like the presentation from Annika, that was, it was like the reason to rewrite is it was emotions, right? In a way, because I saw the regexes and I feel like this would be better to be rewritten, right? So we are all artists as software engineers, and other engineers here in this room who doesn't do software. So approach it with passion. That's my my passionate interjection about source code. But there's also documentation for end users. We have a reference manual, which is a big book for long winter evenings. If you don't have anything else to read, then you read manual. We have a knowledge base that's like snippets of how do I do stuff, and there's manual pages. They're more local to the tools, and there are release notes, which you can read to know what to do if you're upgrading, and also, so why does this not work anymore? So you go to release notes and, this is the reason. Then we have a quite big support team at ISC for supporting our customers with help them with Bind and Kia and now Stork. And they also use reference manual. They also use knowledge page, and they also write it. And they also use the release notes. And there's also something that's called changelog. That's more detailed than release notes, so that the support engineers can look, did this change? But it's like the border between the release notes, which are meant for users, and the changelog, which are more detailed and which are like meant for technical stuff, there's a very thin line. And I mostly think that most of the stuff that's important should be somehow in the changelog, but not everything is suitable for this. So for the release notes process, which initially what I was thinking about to talk here about is that, like, before what we had, before we had this like doc book in XML, which is horrible. Now it's the restructured text. So, but before we made the change, which we made like a year ago or something, we modified the source code. We modified the release notes. There was a single file per release. Then we created merge requests. Then fixed the spelling. Then we had to rebase the branch because it's not always merged in order. And we had to resolve the base commit in the release notes and repeat and repeat and repeat until this is fixed. So it was really annoying. It was workable but annoying. But how we change this? There's a tool called Git changelog, which we customized a little bit, not much, but we customized it for our use case. So we modify the source code, we create the merge request, then we write a solid merge request description in a GitLab or your favorite. The GitLab is going through enshittification, I think, right now. I've been seeing ads for their internal stuff in GitLab, but still it works. But the point is, write this into the merge request, description and title, and spell check it and merge it, and that's it. And when the release comes, it gets automatically converted into release note. So here are some examples. It's tagged like this is a new feature meant for users, and as you can see, this is from the top one. Does it work? No. So the top left is the merge request description, and it gets automatically converted into the release note. This is removed feature, again, meant for users. This is a bug fix, and it gets converted into own sections into the release notes automatically. Not all is ideal because, it's easy to make a typo, and then you see, well, it gets some manual, meshing before the release. But my point is, this is the job of the software engineers together with the QA and the support to make it good in the very beginning, so there's less work in the end. This is our syntax, so it's mostly what we had before. So there's action, and there's the audience, and it just defines where it gets put in the end. It's not that complicated, and I quite like that it gets automated, and it produces really nice release notes for the end users that they can read and understand. And then there are security release, and this is where everything gets different. So the security releases are same but different because everything needs to be done in the private. So it's more complicated. You need to have a different repository that's not open to the public. Also means that there's only internal testing. It helps to have a small group of outside testers, customers under NDA. Thank you. These customers, I can't name, that they found, we had to postpone the release by a week. Just, well, that will be released today, but it should have been last week because one of the better customers just deployed in production and was assertion failure. There's shame here, but it happens. You can't just cover everything with tests because you don't know. The DNS is wild word, and it will eat you. So we found a bug, and then we had to spin everything again. But what's worse is the coordinator releases. So and this is one. So we forced the Power DNS and labs to also postpone release because of us. So I apologize for that, but things happens like this. And the release engineer is just beeping at this point. Summary. Release branch, keep the release branches always in good shape. Make the release engineering automated. Ideally, like it should be one click, and the magic happens. It takes a lot of time to automate, but in the end, it like saves time. It should save time. Not always the case, but it should save time. For the release notes, again, use tools, not a manual process. And I think that the important thing is also that all parts of the team should work together, like software engineers, QA engineers, and support. They should all like be on the same board of this and not fight internally. Fixing merge conflicts is always annoying, error prone. And I was really fast this time. So
that was awesome. Thank you very much, Ondrej. Thanks for sharing your wisdoms. It was very, very nice. Any questions from the room?
Like small group and small group among ourselves.
Ondrej Zajicek, the developer. I would have a question about the release branches. Like, if you have some patches or the release branch, or your everything like rebase and just have one final patch in the release branch and put it back to master? Because I would prefer like some different approach, like move the development from main branch to some next branch, do the releasing on the main branch, and then rebase next branch after the release. So I would have linear main branch which tags for each release.
Okay, that's a good question. But I thought about including this, but I already had like 27 slides for 20 minutes, so I thought like not. But we have some time. So the way we do the development, we have a main branch at the development, and then we have like bind-920 and bind-18. And for the most part, you create a merge request targeting the main branch. You tag it with 9.21, 9.22, 20. And when you merge the main merge request, there's a job that automatically tries to backport the whole merge request onto the release branches. So it's all automated, but of course it breaks from time to time. If there was some refactoring in meanwhile, then then there's a manual process how to apply the patches. But it's mostly automatic. Thank you, our QA. Thank you, and it works quite well. So you create one merge request, and it gets automatically backported to the other release branches.
That's an awesome level of automation. That's real cool.
Okay. Hey, Annika Hannig here. Quick question about the tooling. I saw you recommending like code from employing code formatting tools, like for example Go FMT or Rust FMT, and I personally like them a lot. They work really well, especially for Go and Rust. However, I think Black is horrible. I tried, so the thing is, I wrote a lot of PEP 8 compliant code myself, and I always employed the linters for this. But then I was once forced in a project to basically pipe this through Black, and it completely destroyed the readability of the source code. And so my question would be like, when would you consider, this actually being a benefit over something like actually linters or other tooling?
So with Python, bind is written in C. So the Python is just like used in the tests. So we use PyTest suite. So we don't have to push this anywhere. So basically, this is like just help us with not thinking about the stuff. I totally understand that if this is like a proper Python pip package or something, then it might be more complicated than this. So, well, the recommendation is use it when it makes sense, but use something so you can like offload it to the tool. The part of the brain that should think about the formatting, then it should be, you know, not busy, just offload it to some tool. Use what suits you, but basically use something that's coordinated among, you know, other people. And it's the other people is not just the team, it's also other contributors, because for the project in C, you can include the .clang format, something in the source tree, and then there's automation in Emacs or other inferior editors like BI.
Yeah, absolutely.
that can help you just format the code. And I am also a contributor to, I don't know, libuv or other projects, and I just created a page for OpenSSL, and it was just so painful to just get the formatting right without these tools. So as an external contributor, I want just like clang format and it's done. I don't want to think about, you know, what is the like current formatting for the project I'm contributing to, because there are a lot of like, for Go FMT, that's easy because there's just one style. But for C, there's a lot of options like where you put the curly brace and stuff like this.
Similarly, the case with Python. This is why I especially hinted on this, because in Python, yeah, you can easily write TAP8 compliant code, which will be not left intact by black. And I had the thing that actually found it detrimental to the overall readability of the source code. Yeah, using this tool. But yeah.
Sure, I understand.
So,
And maybe we can't change it now, but maybe there should have been like one style for the whole pip ecosystem from the very beginning, and then, you know, there wouldn't be this problem.
yeah. Okay.
Hey, Shane.
Hi, Ondrej. I'm Shane Kerr from ISC. As you know, many years ago, I worked at ISC and was on the bind team. And at that time, we had a stage in the release process, which I really hated. I think I got rid of it when I was there, which is that we handed it over to the people running the name servers and said, run this on the F-root for a couple of days, just to see what happens. And it was a really worthless step for us at the time because we didn't actually have a structured process, and it was just sort of like, see if anything breaks. And I really hated it. And the operations guys hated it too, because it made them very nervous and they weren't really sure what to do. So it was bad. But fast forward a few decades, right? And here we are. And I think bind is a lot more solid than it was then. And do you do anything like that now, where you ask internally to do put release into production things? Because as you know, no matter how good your testing is, there's always weird shit in the real world. And so you have the last step as the users tested, but you can also be the users. Is that anything you work on? You do?
Well, that's a good question. So the problematic part in DNS is the resolver, right? The authoritative is like, I can do that from my sleep now. But the resolver, that's where the demons and dragons are.
Yeah.
Basically, some of the developers run the development version on their home networks all the time. That helps a little bit. And when there's the security release, we like have a couple of good customers that I can't name that are very good at like reporting back with the core dumps and traces. So we can actually, so it's not all question marks and zero addresses. And that helps, again, that helps a lot. It was actually last year in the January or something, we had another customer who like reported a problem in what we thought was solid. So I wish there was a better way,
Yeah.
but what we did, and I don't have a timeline here, but we like previously there was like alpha release, beta release and stuff, but I don't think anyone ran these anymore. So what we did instead was that there's a like higher cadency of the releases. So we do a release every month if there's stuff, because then we can, if there's something that like is just a little bit broken, you don't have to wait half a year to get it fixed, because you know that it will get fixed in the next release. And also it like lessens the pressure on the developers, because you know, if you don't get your nice new feature into this release, you will get it in the next release. And there's just months between these 2 points in time. So it takes like, there's a less pressure on, trying to get the stuff at the last possible time. Like there's a big release, so I need to merge this like in 5 minutes. So, no, you don't have to. It will be in the next release, and that's fine.
That's cool. So everyone should switch to Arch, and then you can always get the latest bind within a month or so.
Sorry, I didn't.
Everyone should switch to Arch Linux, and then you always have the latest bind.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Hey, Gert Döring, part of the Open VPN team. Yeah, thanks for bringing this. It gives me something to think about. This actually is related to the first talk of today in a good way, because what we strive for is that every commit that goes into the official tree passes all the tests. It compiles on all the platform, it runs all the client server tests we have, and still it breaks for users because we have too many options.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
With all the feature creep of 20 years of software development in that particular package, there's no way to test every combination as hard as we try, because then we find new users that have combinations that are not officially supported, but they still expect them to continue working. So yes, it's complicated.
Do you want to hug?
Well, we don't do DNS, so we have it on the easy side. We just do crypto.
But we can talk about this later. We have some like more stuff that's more automated, like pairwise testing of the options, and Python hypothesis is also nice. That it can generate the test cases in some cases. So if you want, I'm available for the rest of the week.
Yeah, I will grab you on the coffee break.
Okay.
Any questions from remote, Marco? Okay, then thanks for making us feel as artists. And with that, we are done. See you all in Edinburgh or in the mailing list. Thank you very much for coming.
Hey, a very warm welcome, everyone. This morning, welcome to the Cooperation Working Group. Yulf and myself will be chairing this session today, and Achilleas Kimos, our co-chair, unfortunately is not here with us today. We have a set of discussions prepared for you today with 2 remote speakers and a panel and a presenter. And we will explore in this session some of the most timely questions and most important questions, how to govern and sustain the open internet. We are witnessing also at this RIPE 91 that we have several similar talks with the same topic, showing the importance of the topics we are covering today. And with that, I mean that across sectors, regions, and communities, there is this common challenge how to deal with innovation, regulation, and fundamental rights in the digital age. So we will have we'll begin with the talk with the remote speaker, Román Ramírez from the RootedCON Association. And he will take us through a controversy unfolding in Spain, but we heard yesterday not just in Spain. where efforts to protect football broadcasting rights have led to a widespread IP blocking and unintended consequences for legitimate internet users. And then he will take us through a case study that is, and his slides are both in Spanish and English, so you'll have a opportunity to watch that. And then we'll turn into the Europe's evolving regulatory landscape with Mike Blanche. And he will take us through the Digital Networks Act, which has not published yet. And in his talk, Decoding the DNA, he will tell us how this proposal could reshape the open internet far beyond Europeans' borders. Then we'll hear from Anja Gengo from the IGF, the Internet Governance Forum Secretariat in Geneva, how the governance is reshaping in terms of for the preparation of the World Summit on the Information Society review, and she will provide some global perspectives because she's also a focal point for more than 176 national internet governance forums that take place annually around the globe. And finally, but not least, Éric Vyncke from the IETF will have a panel with his colleagues here about how the IETF and the RIPE NCC community could work better together whilst they develop these standards, we implement them, and I hope that you also have a set of questions. Please do not forget to rate all the talks, and I've been told that to remind everyone to vote in the program committee election by Thursday by 1700 local time. And if you registered to vote in the NRO election, remember to vote by Friday at 9 a.m. So hopefully you'll be awake or do it before then. You can chat with the NRO NC representatives today between 1:30 and 2 p.m. and tomorrow at the meet and greet desk. So with that, let's get started with our first session, LaLigaGate, and private interest versus fundamental digital rights with Román Ramírez from RootedCON Association. Román, over to you.
Thanks a lot. And thanks for the opportunity to discuss this issue that is getting scared us in Spain for the past months. I will try to be quick and just introduce the context and talk about what is happening. Okay, just to go directly for the conclusions, just to say several relevant things that, in my opinion, are to be addressed even for organizations like RIPE and other critical organizations for net neutrality and the open internet, because this is not only an issue for Spain, but for the global Europe coverage of the networks. Okay, so let me go for the adversaries today. In Spain, we are facing a problem of IP blocking that was originated from two main actors. La Liga de Fútbol Profesional, in Spanish, is like the professional football organization that is managing broadcasting rights. This is very important thing in Spain. What is protected by IP intellectual property laws is not the football itself, is not the football matches, okay, but the recording and broadcasting of these matches, the transmissions, recordings and broadcasting. This is very important because at the end, you may, for example, record a football match by yourself and broadcast this openly, and no one will have any right to limit this broadcasting. Okay, this is very important. What is happening? There is a lot of IPTV services, pirate signals, as they use the term, that are in the middle of the matches, broadcasting from many places, and even they are copying the original signal from the La Liga so they are incurring in some kind of an illicit content retransmission and broadcasting. So La Liga is one of the actors, but the other actor is Telefónica Servicios Audiovisuales. Telefónica is one of the biggest and main operators in Spain, and it has several companies as it is a holding, and one of the holding companies is this one, TSA, Telefónica Servicios Audiovisuales, that is managing football rights and several other media and content related intellectual property revenues. Okay, very important because La Liga is the face of the problem, but Telefónica is behind. Let me show you what is happening with the court ruling. This is the URL you can check. Sorry, it is in Spanish. I translated relevant parts of the ruling for you to get the ideas that are behind the problem we are facing in Spain today. Okay, so very important. You can check there the full document of the court ruling. So with this in hand, La Liga and Telefónica, they are pushing since December 2024. Okay, so this problem started past year, and today we are still facing the same blocks and limitations and IP bans. I will enter in details in the next slides, okay? But take the idea that this problem started in December, that we asked the court to suspend the sentence in February because it was evident, it was obvious that they were blocking innocent people and innocent websites and innocent IP addresses that are not related to IPTV nor illicit broadcasting of the intellectual property. So we asked the court to suspend the sentence, the ruling, and surprise, the court rejected our appeal, and they said we have to pay for the costs. This is the text that you can see remarked in red in the bottom of the slide, that not only us but Cloudflare, that the team from Cloudflare, they also appealed to the same court, okay, and they rejected. So we asked for clarification on the sentence, and again they rejected. So in March we get the final decision from the court. So they don't consider any innocent affection or problems with people that is unrelated to the sentence. So there is no cause for us to ask for the suspension of the ruling. So the ruling stays. Okay. So what is the next step we took? This is the text in the top in Spanish and in the bottom in English. We and our lawyer, we go for the Constitutional Court in Spain. This is the highest court for fundamental rights. Whenever you feel your rights are in danger, you can ask them to get involved and see if something is happening that requires some kind of protection based on what the Constitution in Spain says. That, very important, is aligned with the European Fundamental Rights Acts and with the Human Rights Declaration from the United Nations. Okay, so here in May, we asked the Constitutional Court to give us protection, because not only freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of starting a business on internet, they are in danger, because La Liga and Telefónica, they're blocking without any kind of limitation of what is happening. Let me go to the next steps. Why I was introducing the adversaries as La Liga in one hand and Telefónica in the other. If you pay attention, you will see that the source of the lawsuit that they asked for a sentence to be able to block IP addresses was, remember, La Liga and Telefónica, that they are targeting operators in Spain. If you see the list, Vodafone, Más Orange, Digi, Telefónica de España, and Telefónica Mobile, both companies that belong to the same holding that Telefónica TSA, Telefónica Audiovisual. So this is something evident in my opinion, but the judge that approved the court ruling seems not to think in the same way, that one company is suing the same company to force the operator, the network manager, to block things that are breaking in some way fundamental digital rights in Spain. So this is something really strange. So you should reflect about what is happening here with a company suing itself to obey the court ruling to do things that are against fundamental rights. Okay, but at the end, in the appeal, the problem with this situation was that RootedCON is focused in organizing a technology and cybersecurity event in Spain. Our association is there to promote internet knowledge, technology knowledge, cybersecurity, and hacking things. Okay, why are we in the middle of this? Because no one else is doing anything. Cloudflare, of course, that is the main victim of this, because most of the ranges they are blocking belongs to Cloudflare. Of course, they appealed, okay, and it makes sense. It's a company; it is protecting its interest and business interest, okay. But why are we in this thing? Because no one else is doing anything. Not only nor the government, nor private organization, nor non-governmental organizations. No one. So we took the decision to get involved because we think this is really risky and dangerous for the civil society, for the citizens, and for internet rights and the open internet. Okay, so why the court ruling? This is in Spanish. I will go in English just to give a quick explanation of what's happening here. The ruling addresses that Google and Cloudflare, they are enabling ECH. If you don't know what is ECH, it's quite important security measure to hide the domains, the data of the domain you are requesting when you try to establish an encrypted communication, okay, an encrypted connection. So the ruling addresses that ECH is dangerous and is problematic to be able to block domains. So the solution for the problem is not only block the domains, but allow blocking IP addresses in a whole. And next, this is in Spanish again. I kept in the slides just for you to get the original reference to compare the translation, okay? But they take the decision that all these companies that are requesting the blocking, they are not violating any law, okay? So they can do the blocking. They don't interrupt the public order in any way, but most important, in the sentence, in the court ruling, they said that no harm to third parties, innocent people. It is confirmed. So the judge rules that they can do the blocking because all these conditions, they are met on the context, on the scenario. Okay, so in Spanish again, for the particular and the unique case of the problem, they allow not only to block a list they provided to the judge, to the court, to approve the blocking, but every week they can provide a dynamic list of IP addresses that they can block with the obedience of the court ruling. Okay, so this is one of the biggest concerns we have because first, this list of the dynamic IP addresses is redacted and prepared by LaLiga and Telefónica. They do take the decision of which IP address is to be placed there, and then this list is passed to the network operators and they are forced to obey the block, okay? So this is one of the very most concerning things here. This dynamic list is elaborated by private companies that are, in my opinion, affecting the public interest, okay? So the consequences there is, as you remember, in the court ruling, no one in third parties or no innocent IP addresses or domains or organizations will be affected. Of course, this is false. This is not what is happening. They are actually blocking IP addresses belonging to Cloudflare that, as you know, one single IP can host 1,000 services that maybe one of them is yes, an IPTV and it is an illicit content, but what happens with the others that are innocent and they are doing anything? The typical reference and example we use here is that imagine there is a building where in one of the stories you have a criminal and you block the whole building and interrupt all the people that is living there because you want to get this only single criminal in this story in the first floor, for example. So they are not only affecting general things, but let me show you, they are blocking for weeks today. This website is tracking who and how and for how long they are getting blocked. Okay, you can see several IP addresses that are belonging to Cloudflare, of course, and other places. But very important, if you see the date there, some of these IP addresses, they are blocked forever. Not only for just the football match or blocking for this IPTV illicit service, but even when the IPTV illicit service is shut down and they move to a different IP address, the IP address that they are blocking, it is still blocked a week later. This is just an example, but very important. No IP service, they get into Y Combinator. You can see the thread there because they cannot even use the no IP service, and they even blocking Percel, Heroku, Amazon AWS, GCP. They are blocking a lot of things, but even they are so silly that they blocked they themselves because they were using Cloudflare CDN to host several JavaScript resources that they were used in La Liga websites. So this is like a crazy situation that no one understands in Spain. So what is happening with the blocks? Okay, it is supposed they will block only illicit content. No, they are blocking a lot of people. The blocking should stay for some time. That no, is false. They are blocking for weeks, even several IP addresses and specific CDNs. They are blocked forever because we are checking regularly the IP addresses. So we don't understand what is happening here and why the government, not only in Spain, but in Europe, is not involved directly stopping this madness, because at the end, if you check what the United Nations says in the Human Rights Declaration, no one will be subjected to arbitrary interference, and very important, the law will be controlled and the law will be used to prevent this kind of interferences on citizens' lives. Okay, very important. This is for a Human Rights Declaration, but in European Union, we do have the Article 11 that is talking about the freedom of expression and the capability to emit and receive opinions, okay, and informations. So it is supposed, it is protected by the European Union for our rights, okay? But even in Spain, I will pass to the next. Even in Spain, we will have several, give me here, in the Constitution articles, in particular, the Article 20, 24, and 38, that they are covering as fundamental rights what is related to freedom of speech, freedom of press, the idea that you cannot be punished without being proved guilty before. This is 24.2. Okay, and the freedom of starting a business and the freedom of businesses, of enterprises, that is 38. Let me get back to other European Union rights because it's quite important. Article 16 is the same as the 38 in Spain, the freedom to conduct a business in internet, for example. Okay, and the Article 48 is the same as the 24.2 in Spain, that you are presumed innocent until proved guilty. So no one will be able or should be able to block any of my IP addresses of domains if not proven guilty. Okay. The European Union digital rights, they are focuses in technology should be used to unite and not to divide. Okay. Technological solutions respecting fundamental rights. This is everything within European laws. Okay. And connectivity, that this particular paragraph is focused on net neutrality and the open internet. So the problem we are facing today in Spain is not only for Spain, it's a global problem in general in Europe that we should address and we should fight, because if we allow this behavior to spread, we will face a lot of problems that related to private interest and private companies affecting fundamental digital rights. Okay, this is from United Nations, the special relators on fundamental rights. They address in this report that encryption and anonymity, they are quite relevant for freedom of speech and from other rights, and they should be protected. So the United Nations official poster is this one. Okay, so let me go for the conclusions. The problem is not only for Spain, it's for Italy, for France, that they are doing different blockings, not only IP addresses blocking, but DNS blocking and others. They are even preparing some kind of a reglement or document to address VPNs. So you should get scared here in this point. If they are not only blocking IP addresses, affecting DNS and attacking the VPNs, we have a very bad situation in terms of digital rights. Okay, but even this is more concerning because the child sex abuse materials, there's some rule, it is well known as chat control. They want to scan in devices, in local devices, to be able to identify offending content, or for example, supporting documents for Palestine or whatever. Okay, so in my opinion, having private companies interfering with encryption, with the privacy of the communications, doing man in the middle in the connections, that we are seeing this behavior in Spain. They are intercepting just to open the TLS channels, just to see what is happening there. Okay, all this together is a big problem and should be of a special concern for organizations like RIPEN and other organizations. So if you see DNS over HTTPS, the ECH, and of course strong encryptions, they are good for the citizens. The only benefit of blocking this is not for the citizen, it's for the criminals, because they will be able to sniff and capture traffic in internet easier. So we need to take this seriously. This is not only a problem in Spain, it's a problem that is spreading in Europe. In my opinion, organizations like yours should take this as a priority to stop these behaviors and to press governments and the European Union, and nothing else. Just we need to fight in the social level. We need to inform the citizens because they don't fully understand what is happening with the networks. Okay, we must make a lot of press over political representatives, and in our site, in RootedCON and other organizations, we will release technical tools to avoid this kind of controls, making it impossible to limit the blocking, to limit the access to IP addresses, because we do strongly believe we need to react and to protect ourselves in this situation, because at the end, it seems that from the law, we are not getting any particular response. Okay, so thank you a lot for the opportunity, and thanks for your time.
Okay, any quick questions or comments? Go ahead.
Mia Kuleman, thank you for the presentation. Really interesting. I totally agree that blocking in general is a problem. IP blocking is just really, really bad, and giving this to a private company is like the worst thing you can do. We had a presentation yesterday in the MET group about the Privacy Shield in Italy, and they did a bunch of measurements. They had the problem that the blocking list is not public. It sounds like this is different in Spain, that the blocking list is actually public, right? Yes, so I mean, this is like, it's actually an easy way to find these services, use your VPN and then use them, right? So, okay, but like that's at least a little bit of transparency. I think what like we as a technical community need to do right now, or maybe Raffaele is in the room, I don't know, is really to do the same kind of
behind you
measurements. All right, do the same kind of measurements and put like numbers at this kind of unintended effects and the problems that we see here. Like having these numbers is very valuable.
Yes.
Raffaele Sommese, University of Twente. Thanks a lot. As Media said, I did the work on the Italian counterpart, and I mean I'm glad to see that at least the Spanish authority is publishing the list of blocked reserves. I have a question that is more in the law for you. In Italy, the law states that the service should be used predominantly for abusive services. How is it in Spanish? It's exclusively or predominantly?
It is supposed that should be proof that this is an illicit content, and La Liga, for example, to be able to add this IP address to a list to be blocked, they should have identified this is a proven illicit content distribution or broadcasting, not predominant, but identified this particular IP address as the source of the illicit broadcasting.
So the law requires them to make sure that the address is not used for other purposes.
It is supposed because in the court ruling they said no harm to third parties, innocent third parties. So absolutely, you are right.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks to you.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks very much. Great speech. Thanks.
Thank you.
And now we move on to the proposed the Digital Networks Act, and it's a pleasure to welcome Mike Blanche, who's been building internet infrastructure for the last 30 years, but also spending a lot of time in the policy realm. The DNA Networks Act we'll hear more about, but it's not a new topic for us. We had BEREC presentation, we had a presentation from Namex lawyer in Rome. So Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Mike. As Desiree says, I've worked in the internet infrastructure space for about 30 years. I was at Google for about 15 years. I've been on the board of Links. I'm now an independent consultant working on technology and policy topics for a variety of clients, but anything I say here is all my own thoughts and doesn't reflect anyone I might or might not be working for. With the disclaimer out the way, let's talk a bit about telecoms regulation in Europe. I know it's a thrilling topic. What do we have in place now? We have something called the European Electronic Communications Code, the EECC, which is like the plumbing rules for how telecoms regulation works in Europe. The goal of it, when it was introduced, was to ensure competitive deployment and universal access to high-speed networks. It covers traditional telecoms operators across the European Union, fixed, mobile. It has a little bit of stuff about OTT, in inverted commas, communication services, but it's mainly about fixed and mobile networks that provide services, in particular to consumers. And it's about ensuring competitive networks. It has this concept of significant market power, which is someone who has a significant share of a market. It has obligations around sharing network. It has a whole bunch of stuff in there about consumer protection and switching and porting numbers from one operator to another and so on. This is relatively new. It was only agreed in 2018 in Brussels, and because it's a directive, it has to be transposed into law for every single European country, and that took 4 years. So it's only been really in force across all of Europe for the past couple of years, and it was due to have a review at the end of this year, 2025, which will be the first review, given that it's been in operation for half a dozen years or so. But we had a European Commissioner, Thierry Breton, guy on the right here, who was in post for the past 4 years up to the end of 2024. He was the CEO of France Telecom, and he had what's the best way I can diplomatically put this, had a very open door approach to talking to large telecoms operators in Europe, listen to their concerns, and various things were proposed by the European Commission taking account of their concerns. And you may have heard about some of these in past talks here in the cooperation working group. One of these in 2023 was an exploratory consultation which proposed network fees, which is where the rest of the internet has to pay telecoms operators to deliver traffic that's being demanded by users. In telecoms lobbyist speak, this is known as fair share. And this was to fulfill what was supposed to be an investment gap in building next generation networks, in building fiber to the home, in building 5G. In response to this consultation, everyone thought this was a terrible idea apart from the big telecoms operators who stood to get paid from it. Then last year, there was another paper, a white paper on how to master Europe's digital infrastructure, which kind of promoted other ideas, and some of the same ideas kind of reworked in a different way, including allowing big European telecoms operators to consolidate, to promote this investment that's needed, and to make them European technology champions so they can compete against technology companies from the rest of the world. It also proposed regulatory simplification, which can be a good thing, and the fair share had by this point turned into a fair contribution. It also claimed that there was convergence between cloud and telecoms. So telecoms operators who provide broadband to your home or mobile services and cloud services, this white paper claimed that these two were coming together and therefore maybe needed to be regulated in the same way. It covered other topics as well around submarine cables, around quantum computing, and around security and resilience as well. But we have a new commissioner now. I'll put my best Finnish accent on, so I apologize. Henna Virkkunen. Commissioner Virkkunen is from Finland, and she doesn't have quite the same relationship with the big telecoms companies that Thierry Breton did. And in the few months that she has been in post, we have seen a slight change in position, perhaps in whether the previous ideas are kind of being carried forward. A cryptic comment around not only size matters, we don't necessarily just want to make everyone a few people bigger, we want to make sure that there is competition in the market, telecoms market as well. And in June, there was a call for evidence for the upcoming Digital Networks Act, which is due to be, the draft is due to be released in December, so only like 6 weeks away now. Now, we don't have much to go on. We only have what was in this call for evidence paper, but putting on my using the crystal ball, what could be in a Digital Networks Act based on what we've seen in the call for evidence? Well, simplification is a key part of this. Harmonization, moving to a single telecoms market across Europe. This could merge the EECC that's already there, that European Electronic Communications Code. It could include the Open Internet regulation, be rolled into this Digital Networks Act, which was the Open Internet regulation was hard fought for to ensure net neutrality on the internet. It could address this supposed lack of innovation and lack of investments in next generation networks. It could include spectrum policy reform, where spectrum is now perhaps managed and issued by the European Commission rather than by individual countries. And then the last three on this list are the ones that I think have potentially the biggest impact to the open internet. And we'll talk more about each of these three in a minute. The first one is level playing field, which is potentially aligning telecoms, cloud, and content and application providers all under a single regulatory framework. The second one is net neutrality rules, which is there's a possibility of a clarification around network slicing and differentiated services. And the third one is around IP interconnection, where there's the possibility of a new dispute resolution mechanism or cooperation mechanism that is run by telecoms regulators. So let's take each of those three that potentially impact the open internet in turn. First one is level playing field. Now, this is a term that has been used by telecoms company lobbyists for more than a decade now. And their argument is, well, we compete with all the services on the internet, which is, I would disagree, we need each other, we don't compete with them, and therefore all the services on the internet should be under the same telecoms regulatory framework as telecoms operators. And this links to this claim of convergence between telecoms and cloud. Telecoms operators are using cloud for their own services, and some of them are selling cloud services, but it doesn't necessarily make telecoms operators cloud operators, doesn't make cloud providers telecoms operators either. And other industries are using cloud as well. Banking, energy, healthcare, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's a convergence between cloud and healthcare. This level playing field term and phrase made it into the call for evidence for the Digital Networks Act. So it seems that this thinking has become embedded in at least parts of the European Commission. But the question really is, are telecoms operators and digital services even playing the same sport? How do you regulate a football match and a boxing match using the same set of rules? It's very difficult, right? And it's also very unclear where the boundary of cloud services might be. Is a gaming platform a cloud service? Is there any sort of private network, including the Wi-Fi network I operate at home, a network that needs regulating under this level playing field? It's very unclear at the moment, and we wait to see what will come. The second area is net neutrality. And as I said earlier, the open internet regulation protects net neutrality. It's been in place for a decade now, and it was hard fought for by the community to make sure that everything on the internet has the opportunity to succeed. There are no fast lanes, there are no priority treatment of certain traffic. The Digital Networks Act seems to be proposing a clarification of the open internet regulation to support what's called innovation, in particular around 5G network slicing, to allow priority treatment for different applications or types of applications, and also QoS on end-to-end connections across multiple different networks, which, as far as I'm aware, is not even really possible across the internet, but it's included here. Now, a couple of years ago, Ofcom in the UK revised, because the UK is now outside the European Union, they can do things slightly differently to the EU. They revised some of their guidance around this, and they received evidence from telecoms operators that supposedly they'd not been able to launch a number of different services because of the net neutrality rules prevented them from introducing these innovative services that differentiated traffic. Ofcom looked at this, and actually most of the things the telecoms operators said they couldn't launch was nothing to do with differentiated services. It was just they wanted to have simple fast lanes, which Ofcom was not up for. And even when they did clarify their guidance in the past couple of years since then, we haven't seen any new innovative services emerge from UK telecoms operators to take advantage of this guidance. So it's difficult to see what the real demand is, and there is this risk of a two-tier internet with fast lanes. And then finally, there's IP interconnection dispute resolution. And if you were in the Connect working group just before now and came here because I asked you to come here, thank you. And if you didn't, I just did a talk about this aspect in particular, and you can watch it back on the RIPE video stream later, talking about the potential for telecoms regulators to get involved in what is understood to be a very well-functioning market with no market failure. BEREC have come to the RIPE meetings and talked about their IP interconnection studies, and they don't see any problems with the market. I think personally it's perhaps one of the most efficient markets in the world. The fact that we can have 99.99 whatever % of peering relationships without any contracts or paperwork is a fantastic thing. And even when you do disagree, and we don't always agree with the people that we want to interconnect with, you can resolve that by agreeing to disagree and using alternative paths across the internet to reach between two networks. And that even works with large networks, as we saw in the case of Deutsche Telekom and Meta. Although it went to court after they resolved the court case, they decided they weren't going to peer anymore, and Deutsche Telekom and Meta now do not directly interconnect, and that's fine. I believe Meta services continue to work on Deutsche Telekom. Maybe not quite as fast, but they still work. So the DNA seems to be proposing some sort of dispute resolution or cooperation mechanism for IP interconnection, which would be overseen by telecoms regulators. And the risk here is not only that telecoms regulators start deciding your peering policy, but also this risk of dispute creation rather than dispute resolution. If you have a higher authority you can go to, if you don't like the outcome of your discussion with another party you want to connect your network to, this is dispute creation. It's not dispute resolution. So with the change in the commissioner at the top of the European Commission and the positions of all the different stakeholders are kind of pulling in a number of different directions. And I suspect there is a risk that when the Digital Networks Act draft is released in December, as someone described it at a conference I was attending recently, they described it as a Christmas present that nobody wants, because it could include elements that nobody likes. And the stakeholders all have very different positions, right? The big telecoms operators, they want to be able to consolidate, they want freedom to differentiate internet traffic, they want less regulation for them and more regulation for everything else digital. The small telecoms operators are concerned about competition and making sure the current competitive framework that has allowed them to succeed and invest continues. Content owners and content and application providers have these concerns about network fees or dispute resolution that leads to network fees. And then there's all this other regulation coming out of Brussels at the same time, which potentially overlaps. Governments want to keep control of their spectrum policy rather than hand it over to the European Commission and ensure autonomy of their national regulators. The regulators don't all necessarily agree with the problems that are supposedly identified by the Commission. Consumers associations are concerned about the impact on consumers if there's reduced competition in the telecoms market, there's increased costs for consumers, that's harm to users, and also concerns about net neutrality. And then the civil society and the technical community are also concerned about net neutrality and these IP interconnection proposals. So threading the needle between all these different concerns and diametrically opposed views, I think is going to be very hard for the Commission. So we will see. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, what should DNA do? Well, deployment of fiber to the home and 5G across Europe is going pretty well. It's in most countries. There's a couple of countries, Germany and Italy in particular, on fiber that are a bit behind, but many countries are doing very well. Some countries have already reached 100% coverage of 5G, getting pretty close to it on fiber to the home. What's lagging behind is take-up, people buying these services. And that's because there's not applications that really need gigabit connectivity yet. So if you've got VDSL, that's probably good enough for most things. It's not quite as good, but for most people, it's good enough to stream your Netflix and so on. So driving demand for these next generation networks, I think, is key here, which is the opposite to taxing IP traffic. Reducing barriers to deployment of any sort of network, be technology neutral, especially in rural areas, which are the areas that are now need to be focused on to bring connectivity, high-speed connectivity to everyone, I think is key. And yes, regulatory simplification, I think, is a good thing, but this needs to protect competition, consumers, and the open internet, and avoiding regulatory duplication and overlap with the other regulations that the European Commission, the European Union has brought in recently as well. So I know there's probably a variety of views in the room here on some of these topics, and all I would encourage you to do is keep updated and get involved. The draft proposal is going to be released early December, apparently. Sign up to the cooperation working list if you're not already on it. I'm sure it'll be posted there when it is. I post about this stuff on LinkedIn as well, so you can follow me. If you work for an organization that has a regulatory and policy team that's involved in this, please with them and make sure the views of the technical community are heard, and please join the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to, as a semi-native Finnish speaker, Minna Virkkunen.
Thank you. Okay, Jim.
Jim Reed speaking for myself as a random member of the public. Interesting talk, Mike. Thanks very much for this stuff. Have you any sort of sense for the feel of how soon after this Digital Network Act is published by the Commission that it will then become enacted in national law? And as a sort of supplementary question to that, is there anything that's going to, is there any chance that the current proposals that Rudiger and Martin was talking about at the last right meeting about this multi-stakeholder task force thing that's looking at other potential areas for new sort of internet regulation, is it likely that anything that comes out of that task force might influence this act, or is this act just going to go ahead as it is right now?
So to your first question, this is just a draft that will be released by the European Commission, and then it has to be, there should be a consultation process on it, although we have heard in the past that there's a claim that, oh no, those previous consultations we did, those were the consultations, even though you didn't have something concrete to comment on, that said we're not going to do any more. Hopefully that's wrong, and that the European Commission will follow its own better regulation principles and have a proper impact assessment and open consultation on it. And so the earliest, realistically, it could be implemented, and it doesn't need transposition to national law because it's an act. So it automatically applies across the whole of the European Union without transposition. So probably like 2028, maybe. And then to your other question, it's probably a question for Rudiger as to whether that would feed into that process. I would think there would probably be a broader consultation. I would hope there'd be a broader consultation process as well once they've released the draft that anyone can reply to, and I would encourage.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you very much, Mike.
Peter Koch-Dienig. Brussels keeps confusing me. And my job, actually. So thanks for presenting this, also for the back reference to the Open Internet 2120 regulation and so on and so forth. What confuses me here, and you mentioned it in part, but I'd be interested in more insight. Not only did we have Monsieur Breton, but we had the Draghi report. We had the member states urging the Commission to not really asking for a moratorium, but to start evaluating the efficiency and effectiveness of the regulation and so on and so forth, which is why we got a lot of omnibuses right now. So the DNA feels a bit wrong in that strategy. What's your stance on that?
So you're absolutely right. The Draghi report also called for regulatory simplification
and deregulation.
And deregulation, except on technology companies, where it said there needs to be more regulation, which was a little bit inconsistent. So yes, I agree with you. I suspect that the DNA is too far down the road for them to go, no, we won't do this at all. However, we'll have to see what comes in December as to whether it's something that helps with the overall agenda, as you say, about deregulation and simplification, or whether it's layering more problems on top.
Yeah, I have a short suggestion to make, if I may, while I'm standing here. So you mentioned the open internet regulation, and then what may or may not be helpful there. And it's not new that BEREC is disagreeing with what the Commission suggests. However, BEREC has this nice collection of the national regulatory authorities' reports, annual reports, on the open internet regulation. And it would be great if the RIPE NCC, through the RACI initiative, could maybe inspire some researchers to do a longitudinal analysis of what's in there to support evidence-based policymaking. Thank you.
That sounds like a great suggestion.
Hi, Andrew Camping. Again, not speaking for everybody else. Really interesting presentation as always, Mike. Two things. Firstly, just channeling my inner Rudiger Martin, which is quite a scary thought. As a clarification, I think his task force wasn't to create new regulation, it was to provide best practice guidelines from memory, I think, for NIS2 implementation. So I don't think DG Connect was proposing to invent new regulations to impose elsewhere, at least not in that case. A comment, though, so on one of your points about the fair share, etc. Maria Farrell at the last RIPE meeting gave a really interesting presentation in a keynote about rewilding the internet and about the negative impact of centralization and consolidation. And she'd given a similar to sort of this panel discussion in a side meeting at the previous IETF 121 meeting in Dublin. I do wonder whether the idea of extracting investment funds from the big tech companies who I think, to completely simplify her presentation, are definitely guilty of value extraction from most of the markets that they operate in and not much reinvestment in relative terms. That will be a good thing. Whether it should go to the big telecoms companies is a separate discussion, but maybe at least reinvesting in the markets from where they're sort of extracting value would be good for the internet in the long term. So just giving us slightly counter view, but reserving judgment whether it should go to the big telcos or not.
Just to respond to that, thanks, Andrew. I think the challenge is determining who is extracting value and who is providing value. And that's not an easy question to answer. And the issue with network fees is it's not just about half a dozen big US technology companies. It's about the whole internet and turning the way the internet works upside down, so that rather than everyone paying their way on the internet, it's that now funds are flowing towards telecoms operators who provide access to users.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Anja Gengo. She's a program management officer at the United Nations Internet Governance Forum. She's also a focal point for these national, regional, and youth initiatives. It's a very important year for the IGF Secretariat and the whole initiatives, NRI initiatives, because in December, at the review of the world on the information society, the General Assembly will be deciding not just about the destiny of the WSIS itself, but also there's some positive news that many technical community members, but also other communities have supported the work of the IGF Secretariat, asking for its permanent mandate. With that, Anja, please welcome to, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Desiree, and I hope you can hear me well. It's a great pleasure to join you, and it was so useful to learn from the previous colleagues, and especially from the questions that came from the floor. I'm sorry that we couldn't join you in person in Bucharest. We were really aiming for, but unfortunately the schedules couldn't align. As Desiree said, this is a very important momentum for the IGF, and I would say for the global community that really cares about the internet governance and everything that we stand for in terms of the values. I will, in the coming minutes, speak a little bit about where we are now with respect to WSIS Plus 20, what is the expectation about where our digital future might go as of December. And before that, I would like to provide an update on the outcomes and outputs from the Lillestrøm in Norway, where the IGF and the Kingdom of Norway hosted the 20th annual IGF meeting. So maybe to start with the overall process. So basically the work of the IGF Secretariat was dominated to a good extent by the first half of this year with preparing for the 20th annual IGF meeting, with the WSIS Plus 20 preparations and the overall vision turning into reality this December, informing the preparations and cross-cutting really much of the program and of the agenda that happened in Lillestrøm, but also in other forms of work, which we call the intersessional thematic community-centered work. And now the second half of the year is really focused on WSIS Plus 20 and on fulfilling other portions of our mandate, which is primarily capacity development, fostering collaboration, cooperation, and stakeholder engagement on the issues, matters related to public digital policy of priority for the community. And I will speak how that is changing as well with these processes now. Our structures, including the multi-stakeholder advisory group, the leadership panel, and of course us as the Secretariat, we work this year primarily to deliver the process through which all stakeholders will be able to address the issues of interest, but also be informed about what is happening in the global ecosystem in terms of the digital public policy, primarily putting the emphasis on the WSIS Plus 20 preparations and the meeting that is upcoming in December of the UN General Assembly. Of course, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is something that strongly cross-cuts our work, as well as the implementation of the Global Digital Compact. This year, particularly, you may be aware, we have what we call the special MAG. The Secretary General appointed 40 members through a specific unordinary procedure for this year, primarily, where the MAG is composed of members coming from the so far MAG compositions and also the WIGIC, the Working Group on Internet Governance, with the aim for the expertise and experience in Internet governance from all stakeholder groups, all regions, with complete gender parity to inform the WSIS Plus 20 preparations, but also the future of the IGF in terms of advancing and improving its working modalities. The leadership panel also works towards that objective, led by the chair, Mr. Vyncke, and vice chair, Ms. Maria Ressa. This 15 members body works to also issue a final report to the UN Secretary General on the so far work they have done, and also to strategically make the IGF more impactful, closer to stakeholders wherever they live in, or to the processes that are happening globally. The 20th annual IGF meeting that was hosted by the government of Norway this June in Lillestrøm resulted in several important outputs and outcomes. I have to say that it was one of the most successful IGFs so far in terms of the quality of discussions, diversity of issues, but also in terms of the presence of the high-level decision makers, which for this year is important because at the end of the day, and especially in December, it will be the decision makers who will be shaping our digital future, looking at the Tunis Agenda for the Information Society and the 2 decades after that followed its implementation. Particularly the Lillestrøm IGF messages are an important output because they outline what is the appetite of the global community in terms of the topics and in terms of the substance on internet governance. And we've seen through the discussions on more than 265 sessions that certainly concept of trust and resilience dominates the discussions, calling for strengthening overall cybersecurity, but also data integrity, data governance, particularly in the era of AI and of generative and agentic AI. Sustainability is something that's been also recognized by the global community as an important topic, looking at digital public goods in terms of the digital technologies and in terms of the internet as such. And this is something that we will see later also is present in the WSIS Plus 20 discussions. And hopefully we will see how the final resolution will look like. But the current zero draft, for example, that is informed by various multi-stakeholder consultations, contains the specific wording as well. Some of the colleagues before me were mentioning the concept of internet fragmentation. It is something that is of huge concern, I would say growing concern for the global community in different ways. And we are seeing that primarily through the NRIs, for example. What concerns communities, as you mentioned, for example, in Spain, France, is certainly not identical or sometimes even similar what concerns communities in Burundi, Benin, Uruguay, Paraguay, and so on. So these issues really differ from country to country, and they are real threats to the internet that we all want to maintain and preserve as global as one. So in that sense, the IGF's intersessional work is also oriented toward looking for example, to the concepts of internet fragmentation through a dedicated policy network. We're looking at the technical layer, but also at the policy layer, and at the layer of just the mechanisms that support the implementation of the policies, of the laws, frameworks that we have in various parts of the world, and also at the regional and international levels. The meeting in Lillestrøm and its outputs certainly inform our current work that is focused on the community, and that is in addition to the policy network on internet fragmentation I mentioned. We also work with stakeholders from around the world at looking how do we achieve meaningful access through a dedicated policy network, as well as into governing artificial intelligence, focusing in this context primarily on the mechanisms, on the initiatives that we need to achieve good, for example, AI governance and access and connectivity across the world. I mentioned that whatever is happening in the world is certainly impacting the bottom-up program setting at the IGF, and the current overall security and geopolitical situation informs and orients the intersessional work. So, for example, the best practice forum on cybersecurity, through which we work with multi-stakeholder networks from across the world, this year is looking into what are good and not so good practices on cybersecurity in conflicts, in the zones of conflicts of various nature, and how do we preserve the core internet infrastructure that is so desperately needed in those types of sensitive communities. And then also we have 32 dynamic coalitions that function throughout the year. What is maybe a new thing with the thematic community-driven dynamic coalitions is that they work also jointly on issues that they see are a global priority. So just recently, perhaps some of you have seen the webinar that a number of different dynamic coalitions organized together with the IETF Secretariat to look at quantum computing and what is this next phase of technological innovation coming our way, so that the community can be ready in terms of the just overall governance approaches to tackle and embrace that technology as well. And of course, our strongest partners in understanding the specificities of a very diverse global digital governance or internet governance agenda are the national, sub-regional, regional, and youth IGFs. There are, to this momentum, 177 of them. For example, the national IGF in El Salvador is happening today, continuing its meeting. Soon we will witness other annual meetings as well. But these processes are growing both in quality and in quantity. And as I said, their outcomes and outputs are critical to inform the global discourse. But I would say also to the, especially international and regional processes, they are offering unique multi-stakeholder organic platforms for implementation of the mechanisms that, that we are coming for in order to serve people from around the world. Capacity development is one of the mandated objectives of the IGF. We are focused also on fulfilling within our capacity this objective as well. I'm glad that Roman spoke about the role of judiciary and the courts, for example, in this internet governance space, because it is real and their decisions are impacting people at individual and our societies at collective levels. What we are seeing are gaps in terms of the understanding, particularly of the technical layer of the internet, but then of course how that matches the international law, the applicable national law, and other policies. So we are seeing the appetite for more cooperation, more stakeholder engagement with judiciary. Similarly, as we have been doing with legislators, with parliaments from around the world since 2019 actively, in order to bridge this gap and ensure that those who are coming up with just concrete decisions impacting all of us are really informed, and that that is done through a multi-stakeholder approach, because that is the only way to understand the potential and the reach of technology before making any decisions. And in that sense, the IGF in Lillestrøm, for example, had for the very first time something that we call targeted judiciary engagement, where we had judges, so prosecutors, but also court staff, speaking to the multi-stakeholder community, to the experts from various disciplines on the topics that have been of their interest at that time, and this is something we will continue. Likewise, working with young people is a critical pillar of our capacity development strategy, and delivering other activities upon demand, primarily for the Global South, with the aim to build cooperation, collaboration, capacity of the Global South communities, but also between developing countries and developed countries in the sense of the internet governance reach. And I know that we are running out of time, so I will try to just speed up. What I would like now is also to inform you about broader agenda within the UN that certainly impacts all of us and concerns very much of the IGF. There is a recent work that's been done at the level of the UN General Assembly, but also at the level of different specialized agencies of the Executive Secretariat. Valuable work happening with the regional commissions of the UN in different parts of the world. For this occasion, I would like to mention a few resolutions that came up recently out of the UNGA, and they're very much focused on internet governance and primarily are informing and I would say orienting to an extent the work of the IGF as well. So you will see the texts on the way the digital technologies are impacting the societies from the perspective of the SDGs. As you know, the UN has been very clear on informing the community and reporting to that we are behind on achieving the SDGs and 2030 agenda, but there's been a strong recognition that digital technologies can be a strong accelerator of the SDGs, and this resolution, for example, specifically speaks about that and calls for more cooperation. AI, as you know, is dominating very much our global discourse. So in that sense, the GA came up with 3 very important resolutions in this domain. The first one is about the opportunities the AI systems can bring for sustainable developments, followed by the need for capacity development of AI. And the third one is more technical because it speaks about the terms of reference and working modalities of 2 new mechanisms that we are seeing within the UN focused on AI. The first one is the establishment of the Independent International Scientific Panel on AI, and backed with the global dialogue on AI governance that will be happening interchangeably in Geneva and in New York. So we are yet to see how this will be implemented in practice, but for now we've seen the terms of references and the modalities which do underline the importance of multi-stakeholder approach. And we are hoping that the upcoming WSIS Plus 20 review, particularly the decision by the UN General Assembly in December, will bring more clarity on how do we make all these processes work together. Of course, all of us being oriented toward the multi-stakeholder approach. The WSIS Plus 20 zero draft, as I said at the beginning, is informed by various multi-stakeholder consultations. The process led by Albania and Kenya is very much open to the community. The text itself now in the form it is that's available on the dedicated website speaks about preserving the multi-stakeholder approach and the role that all stakeholders play in internet governance going forward. What the Secretariat does is we're very much focused on formal reporting lines that we are due to fulfill towards the, through the CSTD to ECOSOC and then the UNGA. So this will be something that will inform the Secretary General's final report and of course the General Assembly's deliberation in December. I do invite you to be active and to make sure that your voice is heard in the WSIS Plus 20 consultations. The technical community particularly is a very important stakeholder group because we believe that you are the condition of all conditions in terms of your work to ensuring that we keep the internet and with that connected services, applications and tools in line with the principles that we stand for in the IGF, which is a multi-stakeholder, open, inclusive, transparent framework that is bottom-up and of course human rights based. The deadline, I believe, for registrations, if you would like to participate in the WSIS Plus 20 is 14th of November. The registration is already open. And if you would like to host any side events, be it in person in New York, this December or online, then the deadline to submit proposals is end of this month. And I would like to invite you to consider proposing some events, because I think that is a good opportunity to engage better with the member states and just inform, as I said, the overall work that they're due to fulfill on 16th and 17th of December. So with that, I will stop here and thank you very much again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Anja. Any questions, comments?
Hi, Andrew Campling again, not representing anyone else. I think the IGF is a very valuable forum. As an observation, the tech community is generally an underrepresented stakeholder, certainly in the sort of annual IGF meetings, and dare I say, even in, for example, the European regional IGF, Eurodeg. So general encouragement for more stakeholders from here to go there. And as a one of the big benefits of going there, which was sort of touched on, certainly for the sort of global IGF meetings, you do get parliamentarians there and other legislators. So if you think they're uninformed about the internet or are making stupid decisions, you have an opportunity to actually talk to them directly and inform them. So yeah, I think it's a very useful thing to attend. And a good investment to generally improve how everything works.
Absolutely, thank you. Anja, many, many thanks for a great presentation and bringing it up to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now I'll invite Éric Vyncke, who's going to take us into the world of internet standards and experiences making an impact. Éric, welcome, and the floor is yours. And I understand this is a new format, a panel.
Thank you. And actually, it's not only me, right? So this will be Jen Lenkova, IPv6 plumber at Google. We also have Mr. Sander, also well known in the RIPE community, and Tail and David. So all of us are coming from different countries, from Switzerland, US, Netherlands, Australia, and myself, Belgium, different kind of background, to big companies like Salesforce or Cisco or Google, and open source. We are doing IPv6, DNS, routing, and all of us are here multiple times. So we prepare a panel that's all of us. And one thing, for each of the panel members, what do you see as difference and similarities between the RIPE community and the IETF community? If you have anything to say.
Okay. I think the communities work very similarly. There is a pretty open process in both of these organizations. Obviously, the targeting is very different, and the IETF is just much more complex with all of the different working groups.
Well, one thing I'd say is there's actually quite a lot of cultural similarity. Like if you look at other organizations that are trying to, take on different parts of managing the internet, the technological community that's involved in both RIPE and IETF has a lot of similarities in personality styles of the people involved and the way they approach the work. And like one of the positives I see also is that there isn't so much standing on hierarchy, right? Like generally speaking, people just want to get things done, and it kind of doesn't matter whether you're an architect or a programmer or what you do, as long as you have good ideas and contribute. Generally, I think that both organizations really look forward to the contributions, and less so the particular person that's doing it.
Yeah, my experience is a bit more mixed, and I think the big difference is like the RIPE meeting, RIPE community feels more coherent. If you look at the IETF, it really depends on which working group you're in, on what the culture is. I've seen working groups that feel very much like the RIPE community does. I've seen working groups where different parties are trying to gain an advantage, and the whole feeling is very different. So the IETF is much bigger, and I think there's much more diversity in cultures than in RIPE.
Yeah, I'd like to second what you said, right? It's just much bigger community with slightly different goal, because we keep saying IETF is not a conference, right? Like RIPE is not a conference as well, but IETF is not like you come in and listen to presentations. People actually trying to get some documents which impact how internet operates, right? So there is similarities, there are differences. And shall I mention free drinks at RIPE?
Yes, and nice dinner and nice social, because we don't have this in IETF anymore. You agree? Other questions? And this is a preset questions. If you have other one to the panel, please jump to the queue, right? So usefulness for the IETF. What have you done, one or two of you, done at the IETF for RIPE? Yeah.
Yes, IPv6 mostly.
Yeah, I was about to think.
Okay, so, okay, I actually have something to say here, because I keep talking to my colleagues about the same when they ask why we go into all those places, like Hawaii 10 years ago. So I have a problem. Sometimes IETF is the right place to solve it. You get there, you get stuff done, and it might be actually useful for the community, right? So I hate writing drafts. It's not the process I enjoy, right? But sometimes you need to do this to get some outcome and get something done in the most efficient way. So.
Yeah, I look at what I didn't do that much in the IETF. Like I participated a lot, but what happens there is very important and useful for our community. So I do think we should do more of that.
So I work in several different areas in the IETF, but my primary focus is in the DNS. And so oftentimes it has fallen on my shoulders to document some protocols that are being used on the internet that are not necessarily popular. For example, my name is on the EDNS client subnet draft, even though I am not the inventor and I see many flaws in it, but it was necessary to document it for the community to understand when they're managing their networks, what they're seeing, and how different CDNs were making use of mapping across the internet. So, we're working right now on a protocol called Delig, which is trying to enhance the DNS in a way that has not been done for its 40 years of existence, which is to make it easier for clients to actually get encrypted DNS service, for example, over the internet, and a number of other features. Essentially we keep trying to make the DNS better, even at the same time as we make it complex. So we try to do it in a way that can still be understandable.
I'm most active in IPv6, mostly towards the end host and the CPE kind of things. I'm still trying to fix multi-homing for IPv6 networks where you don't have BGP sessions. That's still an open problem, and we need to get something done there. For the routing stuff, which is technically my job, I mostly tend to pay attention. Most of the time, I'm not sure enough of what would be useful to carry from operators at RIPE to the IETF. So that's something I'm looking for input on. If anyone feels comfortable throwing things at me, I'm happy about that.
Éric, we have two quick comments, right? I've been seeing in like some Telegram operators communities, when operators say, oh, those vendors, they inventing those stupid protocols, like it's something given by you as a matter of fact. But I keep telling those people that if you do not like how protocol is developed, come and say something and don't complain if later, if you ignored the process, did not give your input, and then you're unhappy with outcome, for example.
So there is actually some interaction between what we do, especially address policy, and what the IETF does. And sometimes these worlds don't align. There was at some point a proposal that for a certain protocol, you just should assign a /32 loopback to your interfaces. And I'm talking a v6 IP /32 to your loopback. So, that would technically they're just numbers, but this would completely not work with the policies we have in our community. So there is actually some interaction there.
Indeed. So next question, what is missing at the IETF and what could the RIPE bring to the IETF? So operators feedback?
So operators feedback will be really important. the reason I'm not participating in the IETF as much as I would like to is it does cost a lot of energy and a lot of time, especially because it's so big. There are so many people. There's so much going on. It's really hard. You basically need an employer who will sponsor you to do this work, because this is not something you can easily do in your spare time.
Éric, I think that question shouldn't be not to us, to the community, right? Because
but
most people on this stage are coming there, so we need to hear from people in the room.
I will emphasize, though, that one of the biggest criticisms of the IETF from other technologists is the fact that it gets very little operator input. And while there is crossover that definitely exists, we need more. You know, standards do get developed on the basis of this seems like it'd be a really good idea, but often by a programmer who thinks I can implement this without really hewing to the operational realities of what it would take to get that standard deployed.
I actually did homework. I looked at IETF attendance list for 3 years, at RIPE attendance list is 3 years. And out of 2,000 people who came at least once to RIPE, 10% actually were registered at IETF in the last 3 years, assuming you put your last and first name correctly. So there is a substantial overlap still. I think 10% is not so bad.
Indeed. So why me? I mean, why you in the room should come here, or why did you come to the IETF?
We need you. that is the simple answer. We have, especially for some sizes of businesses, let's put it like that, on the lower end, there's very few people at the IETF that we can even go to and ask if things work for them, what we need to fix for them. It's a pretty large blind spot. So if we are to develop protocols that work better for everyone here, to get there, we do need to know where to actually go with them. And yeah, we can't, we don't have a magic ball to figure this out.
I think because what I said earlier, like it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. I think that also creates a selection of which companies and which people are represented at the IETF. So what I think is that the IETF needs more people from smaller companies, but they will have trouble getting the funding and the time to do it. And for bigger companies, it will be easier. It's a smaller percentage of the budget. But so I think what the IETF needs is better representation from smaller operators.
And by the way, if you allow me, from a big company, it's not as easy as well to get a travel budget, right? Don't take me wrong.
I actually have a comment. So with my V6 mostly work, I've done most of the progress at IETF, and it has nothing to do with working for a big company. It's actually being there, doing dog food, grabbing people who are actually able to fix the problem, and tell him, look, I have a problem. Like 2 days later, we have a code change, which will be in the next release of operating system or something, right? So you actually get contacts to get stuff done much, much quicker and get things fixed, which you would not even, I can't even comprehend going through like standard support channel and so on, right? So it's actually very useful. You're making this community contact.
Additional clarification I'd like that. So Éric used a very interesting word, why should you come to the IETF? I'll point out that it can have a couple of different meanings, but the majority of participation in the IETF actually happens on mailing lists. You don't have to come anywhere. And besides remote attendance being possible for meetings, you don't even have to attend meetings in order to make a big impact on how different work progresses. And as to the amount of time, yes, the IETF is huge. Yes, there are a ton of drafts going on. But if there is a draft that interests you, like DNSOP, the main group for vetting new DNS proposals, has 24 different active drafts at any one time. We're not all working on 24. No, I don't work on all 24 drafts, right? And so you focus on something that's of particular interest, and you can make a contribution for free, right? Like it's a okay, time is not free, but aside from paying attention to what's going on with the draft and being able to read it and make some feedback on it, your participation in the IETF is valued just for, you know, the time you spend on it.
And you make a good point. I make a mistake, like, to come to the IETF, let's participate at the IETF. Think about on Monday, right, in the plenary, Remco presented something about next up for an IPv4 address being a v6 address for the default gateway. Guess what? The draft is published now, and start discussion. Okay, with you, but other people as well. Yeah, but it's enough. We won't comment on the draft, right? So if we change a must in a should, to come back to some discussion, yeah, the input can be done. One email, anybody in the room can send an email. You don't need to pay, right? And something very important, you represent yourself at the IETF, right? So don't be ashamed to post your point of view there.
I will note here that most of these arguments also work the other way around for IETF people to come to a RIPE meeting. Personally, I'm very happy that we have Mirja and Surý here this time with IAB hats on. We should probably also carry arguments the other way around. And if anyone in the room has great reasons for more IETF people to come to RIPE, tell them to us so we can throw them in the plenary or something, and get more IETF people into RIPE, into AppNIC, into Nanog, or things like that.
Yes, because actually I remember how I ended up in this show business, right? It was an interim IETF meeting right after RIPE meeting in Amsterdam. So it was like Saturday, so you don't need to travel anywhere. You're basically already in the building. It costs like $50 or something. And it was like operational groups. It was, I think, V6 ops and DNS op, I don't remember. So it was actually very useful to like try IETF experience with minimal amount of investment in both time and money. So I think IETF leadership should consider doing this again.
And she's looking at me when saying, okay.
And
Joe's looking at you, Suresh, as well, right?
You just close it.
Other questions. Is it difficult to work at the IETF or to participate?
Yes and no. Again, it's the access is very easy, but you do have to be paying attention, right? And like one of the notable things that is different, again, going back to it's not a conference, it is actually a session of working groups, is that there is very little you can walk into at the IETF and just kind of pick up with wherever they are, right? You come to RIPE and you get a presentation that is one nice package product. You walk into an IETF working group, you better have an idea of what's going on, or you're just going to stare at your laptop doing email the whole session because you won't be able to follow what's going on. And
yeah, and you're perfectly right. And what you can do is attend remotely, right? If you're free, there is a free waiver. And there are very specific sessions, the birth of feather. So it's not exactly the same thing as the birth in the RIPE. This is basically a working group starting. So they start from scratch. They explain the problem statement, right? The use case, not go deep into the technical solution. So you can get a good input there immediately. And it's very easy because those ones are self-packaged. It is 2 hours. And there are 3 of them in Montreal in 2 weeks.
So, asking a question back. You said before there's lots of drafts going on, but you only pick a few that you want to participate in. When you're want to start contributing, when you're new, where do you start looking? Because there is so much going on. How do you find the interesting bits?
That can be an interesting challenge. One thing, though, is that anybody can sign up for a mailing list for free. At the IETF website, you will see, if there's already, say, you've identified a draft that's interesting to you, you will see which working group it is being discussed in, and you can join that working group's mailing list to then discuss the draft.
I can tell you, my first IETF Vancouver 2013, I walked in the room, like second session of the day, and I see presentation about people trying to deprecate things I'm using every day. And I'm like, hey, hold on, just a second here. It's like, oh, there is a use case apparently.
Also useful is that the mailing lists all have public archives that go back the entire time.
Yeah. And so something we need to share with RIPE and IETF meetings, we need to finish on time. Specifically, you got a free lunch here, right? Thank you for your attention.
2.5 minutes.
We don't want to keep people from lunch, but we're going to do one quick question if there's, do you want to comment?
Yes. Hello, thank you for your really interesting new format. I like it. And I can support your messages. So I'm Constance. I'm speaking for myself, and I worked a long time for government and designed public networks. So what governments are interested in is security and sovereignty. So what can we do mostly for these issues to standardize and make policies in our own issues from our democratic view. So I'm really interested in to bring in our democratic values in IETF standards.
Mm-hmm.
So what we saw a long time ago, the Chinese people came up with the IPv6+. So we try to prevent it. So what we see in governments, that's an important issue to go on the IETF and to see what is happening there and who makes the standards there. So I have a personality interest to follow this process, and I can recommend it also for the EU Commission. It's better than regulation in every time to use these possibilities to bring in values and to save our sovereignty on this way. Thank you.
Thank you. And indeed, sometimes in the IETF, we need to fight some forces that are not really nice. Let's say like this, like many communities. Thank you again.
Well, thank you all. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you.
The only additional thing I have to say is enjoy your lunch. Thank you.